Welcome, everyone, to another edition of CPG Insiders. I'm your host, Mark Young, the co-host, Justin Girouard. Justin, we're getting close to the book launch of my new book, 27 Unbreakable Rules. I've been doing podcast interviews all week long on the book, and we're getting great feedback on it.
Yeah,
the feedback has been tremendous on the book, so we're really excited about that. And I've been looking forward to this interview. We've got some great interviews coming up this month.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and today's interview is with an old friend of mine, and we've known each other for a long time, done business together. We've been on a charitable board together, and his name is Greg Heeres. Now, Greg has a book out called Passing the Baton. And here's why we're doing this. We have a large audience, and we have lots of entrepreneurs, and you entrepreneurs, you're all in different stages of your business. Some of you are startups, some of you are $50 million. They're all over the place. But there's one thing that we all share. At some point, we're going to have to stop doing this. Nobody wants to talk about it, but as you hear the commercial for the life insurance, everybody's going to die. You're going to die. At some point, we're not going to be doing this anymore. And as entrepreneurs, we tend to real entrepreneurs. And again, I'm going to qualify that. There are people that are self-employed. There are people that are entrepreneurs. Self-employed, I have a barbershop. I have a plumbing company. Entrepreneurs are different. Entrepreneurs, we are people who see things that don't exist. We create vision, and we are the 0 to 1 people. We are the people who create something where nothing used to exist. And we all share a common secret. And our secret is we all believe deep down that we know how to do something better than the rest of the world. And we're all seeking the same 4 things, as Dan Sullivan calls the 4 freedoms. And those 4 freedoms, and Justin, you know the 4 freedoms. The 4 freedoms are freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationship, and freedom of purpose. And that's what drives us into entrepreneurship. Now, unfortunately, many of us go into entrepreneurship with the goal of freedom, and instead we create our own prison. Because we create a business that can't operate without us. And if it begins to operate without us, we go and break something so that we are the only people who can fix it.
It's self-sabotage.
But is that not true, Greg?
It is, yeah. It's very true. I think one of the challenges with business owners, entrepreneurs, or very experienced multiple generation owners, it's their identity. And you kind of spoke about that. The business relies on them. The problem solving has to come to them. And it feels great, and they're good at it.
Well, who doesn't want to be a hero?
Right. Exactly. Who doesn't want to wear a cape? But not tights. Not tights. Not tights.
See, Mark, not tights.
Yeah. Whoa.
All right, I'll stop wearing the tights to the office, okay?
Thank you. That's all I ask.
Particularly the bright red one.
But I can keep the Mark Man cape.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a cartoon coming out next year. You should do that one. Mark Man. I'll write a couple renditions and you'll scratch them all.
So, Greg, tell us how you got started. You're an entrepreneur.
Yep.
You had a sale. You had an event. And then what happened? You built this big company. You cashed out, which many of our viewers do. And Greg, let me set the table for you. In the CPG world, most of our clients, not every one, but just I would say 95% of them, are in the CPG business to build it, blow it up, and cash out. Because in the world of consumer packaged goods, just to explain this to you, innovation in consumer packaged goods comes from entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
When Procter and Gamble has an innovation, it's now tied with a new fresh scent. That's what they call innovation. When OxyClean came on the market, there was a guy in his garage who invented OxyClean. And now where's OxyClean? Now you can get tied with OxyClean because OxyClean became a big brand and got sold out. So in our world, there's actually an algorithm to it. Startups innovate, startups grow up, multinationals acquire, multinationals turn them into big national or international brands. And the normal way to do business here is the big brands, the Church and Dwight's, the Procter and Gamble's, the Palmolive's, they're constantly on the look. They're constantly looking for what's the next brand we can buy because we have more resources, we have more scale. We can take this $50 million brand and turn it into a $500 million brand. So most of our clients and the people we deal with are here to sell. But that's not the end of the story, is it? So talk about your life at first when you had your sale. What were you excited or were you deflated? What happened?
Well, I think most of us anticipate there'll be some change, and that's hard to know how it will feel. But I think when most companies get to that place of, I got to get to that next level. How do I do that? And with the same team you have or the same systems you have, market plan the same way. So when we sold, I would say I was excited because of one thing. We didn't have enough younger partners in our firm. And so the bullpen was empty. And so the starting pitchers had to go 9 innings. And we kind of looked ahead, maybe 5 or 10 more years are like, we're going to be in trouble because my oldest partner in one of the firms was 62, our youngest was 47, and we had no one younger. And that was our scare. So I was excited to pass the baton to the next bullpen folks to help lead our firm. And then as things shook out, they wanted responsibility, right? And that's the tough part, I would say, for most of us entrepreneurs and business owners, empowering someone to make decisions while we still kind of want to make decisions. And so I struggled with that. I still kind of know what I'm doing, but I have to let this 29-year-old kind of flex their muscles. And she was going to figure this out on her own, or, he's 34 and he's got a little growing to do, but you have to let him. It's like parenting. And that's what it kind of felt like for a minute, was like, I have to kind of let parent a minute. I got to stand aside. And, but you're right. I think sometimes we know we're pretty good at things and he's not going to know any better. He's got so many years to catch up to me. But in the end, that's the scale mechanism, and it's the succession mechanism. We have to be able to either share the baton or pass the baton. And I was nervous as all get out, and I had to kind of reinvent myself. So when a business owner goes, what will it be like when I hand the key and I never come back? I can tell you what it feels like. But it won't be their walk will be equal to mine. But I know there's pricker bushes here. There's a trip here. There's a sad night there. There's in that book, The Business Baton, I think you have that, Mark. It's available on Amazon, Barnes. It's sold well. One of the chapters, I think it's the second to the last chapter, 12. It's when the phone stops ringing.
Right. The applause all stops.
I was really struggling. Like, okay, no one calls me. They're not asking me for lunch. They're not asking me about the United Way campaign, anything. And it was a ghost town for a minute. And I had maximized for a long time, but I didn't do a lot with it because I was running a company with other partners. So when that kind of freed up, my margin was big. And I thought, I want to help other business owners recognize some of the things that I missed or I learned the hard way.
A friend of mine was the senior VP of Chrysler of marketing back in the days. He's the guy that convinced Lee Iacocca to go on TV. And interesting conversation. He said that Les Moonves, the CEO of CBS, used to fly to Detroit to meet with him. Because the day he retired from Chrysler, it was like everybody's Rolodex had some kind of magic that made it all blow up. And he went all the way from Les Moonves showing up to Les Moonves, him saying nobody knew who I was.
You used the word Rolodex, and I appreciate that very much.
I know, I do that. And we've told people before, these are these old things we used to have with cards in them that used to spin in a circle.
I liked it. I don't know. Justin's probably like, what in the world are they talking about? Is that a card game?
It's like the third recording where this has been brought up. I remember Rolodex. I never had to use them. But I do remember that.
Oh, he saw it at a garage sale, Mark. That's what
Exactly. You had the little flippy thingy, and it had I know what that is.
The Henry Ford Museum has one on display on their trip through their display, which is trip through the decades.
Oh my God!
So that's where he got to see it. What is that? How does that work?
Is that a fan? Do I bring that to church?
So how does a company know? So first off, we have all these entrepreneurs out there, and a lot of them are thinking they're going to sell the company. Some of them want to pass the company down. We have a client right now who's kind of in the process of passing the company down. How do they decide what they want to do, and how do they plan for it? Because I guess here's my question. I'm working. I'm in the company, and I'm focused on, getting distribution or whatever it is I'm doing. When is the time that I start planning on this succession plan, or when is the time I start planning on the sale? Because I'm assuming I shouldn't be planning on the sale, 6 months within the time I want to have a sale.
Correct. Yeah. I would say that my first advice to an entrepreneur, business owner listening to your amazing show is start earlier and then just table the plan. So you don't have to communicate it to everybody. Don't let the competitors know. Don't tell your customers. But inside, the team needs to know if something goes bad, the company will succeed, maybe differently. So my recommendation, Mark and Justin, is just have a penciled succession plan. And that's what we do. Like, we go through and figure out, who could be a successor? Do they have the funds? Would the owner sell it with financing, seller finance? Is there anything that proprietary when the owner, founder, entrepreneur decides to leave? Can we download what that person has in their head before they go? And you're right, 6 months it's not enough runway at all. I'm not even talking company, I'm just talking even small ones.
So are there two plans we need to look at here? And I'm going to say that, is there a plan that you and I talked about, with all three of us talked about offline? Is the first plan the 100-day plan? What does our company look like for the first 100 days if we lost our leader? Is the second plan the long-term plan? We're trying to reach these numbers and this goal, and then we're going to look for a sale, or we're going to do an ESOP, whatever the case is. So do we need to start with two plans, and which one do we do first, and when do we do it?
I think two plans is not a bad idea, Mark and Justin, because it's not planning the funeral. It's actually protecting the great story you're building. So we just got to look at it more on the positive side versus like, oh, I don't want to plan my funeral. I think there's another plan, maybe, Mark and Justin, that I would suggest. The business owner that retires, which I don't like that word, actually the new chapter, kind of a reframing who he is or she is.
Think about the word. What does the word retirement mean? To place out of service.
Yeah, I can't stand the word personally.
That's literally what the word means.
So we're going to go a little bit. So if you look in the Bible, you'll never find the word retire. So
No.
it's the oldest book out there, and it doesn't even use the word. So our society has kind of pushed retirement, and I like to reframe for the business owner. I like to make sure she has something that just lights her passion, even when she's out of her corner office or whatever the story is. So the third plan would be for that chapter, the new chapter for the owner who's exiting. I prefer that word. I'll be a little careful. I don't transitioning now is a different word, so I'll just go exiting. Sorry, but
Yeah, we're not
exiting
doing any transitioning here at CPG. Okay.
exactly.
So we're really talking about three plans then. We've got this 100-day triage.
Yep, excellent. A good word.
So we got the 100-day triage. We have the long-term exit plan.
Yep.
And then we have the how do I transfer from building wealth to significance for the entrepreneur?
Correct.
Where would you recommend they start? Because you've got three plans, right? And that's would seem to me that's almost daunting in itself still.
It is.
Right?
I will say, Justin and Mark, most business owners don't want to bring up the subject when I'm not here, because often an entrepreneur, a person who started a company, turned a company around, inherited a company, and they feel a lot of pressure from the family. They don't want to think of themselves as not coming into the office or going on the work site, whatever they do. And it's the same for any industry, service, construction, manufacturing. It doesn't really matter. It's the same dilemma. Have a written plan, kind of get some ideas. You mentioned ESOP. ESOPs are complicated, not trying to dispel it. I like the hybrids. So, for example, if it's the three of us, we have a company. Mark, you want to exit first. My challenge with retirement is you're no longer available to us. And I want to create plans where the founder, the entrepreneur, isn't exiled outside the city gates.
Mm-hmm.
They're available as a consultant on the board, but they're not going to have the corner office where everybody knows they can go to the grand poobah and problem solve. And so for me, the first one is just have a pencil plan. And I include it. So I do a lot of work with business owners on strategic planning, and I put succession planning in it. And it's very foreign to them because they're thinking strategic planning. What's our SWOT? And blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, the SWOT is if you fall off the curb. And then the next generation's not ready.
I mean, this is a legit concern. I mean, let's be honest with you. Any of us could get hit by the proverbial bus tomorrow.
Yep.
That we all joke about getting hit by a bus, but the reality is people do get hit by a bus.
They do. And it's unexpected. So not trying to go too textbook on it, but there's 4 things that a business owner cannot plan for. A disaster. So disaster could be a fatality on the work site, a recall of products.
COVID would even be one, right?
A disaster. Nothing in that business owner's acumen can they manage, anticipate, crystal ball a disaster.
So these are what we refer to in prediction as wild card events. Can't be predicted wild card events.
They're 4, Mark and Justin. So disaster, disease. So I have a very good friend now. I actually helped him figure out how to sell his company, and he's transitioning his shares, transferring the shares. But he had what we thought was bladder cancer. So he called me right away. Well, that's the 6-month plan, right? Like that's not enough runway. This is a very large company. And then fortunately he got a nice health miracle, and God healed him and he was good. But it still pushed us to do a pencil plan really quick. And unfortunately, the first 2 Ds you can't plan. Divorce is one you can't plan for. Maybe you can see the handwriting on the wall, but still it's ugly. And then death. So the 4 Ds are just very tough. And I don't have a crystal ball. I know you guys don't have a crystal ball. So at least have a pencil plan. And then, Mark, you mentioned the 100 days post the exit of that leader, that founder, that entrepreneur. The brand often is what I'm learning is that company's brand is that lady leaving or that guy leaving. It's tough. And others, like generally speaking, when I'm working, you get in the trenches a little deeper. All right, so we're not going to find one person. We need to find a couple that can actually fill the shoes of that lady because she started this thing. This guy turned this company around, and he's like a Lee Iacocca example. He turned Chrysler around. He was a very special leader for that appointed time. And how do you replace him? You don't. Someone else is going to fill those shoes and do it their way. And
Yeah, Steve Jobs, I think, is probably the great example of an iconic leader.
Yeah.
And visionary.
I think the other part, when you talk about handing the baton, often, they want to potentially, give it to kids, offspring, cousins, uncles, nephews, whatever. And the next generation, the generational differences is where we spend a lot of time, because mom or dad starting this company and they have a certain way they do it. And then the next generation comes in and they do it a little different. They come in with slides and maybe a Hawaiian shirt, and they're like, that is not professional, And so the generation differences, and there's many. And that's where we kind of would maximize the succession planning. We really make sure that the next generation doesn't try to be like their mom and dad, but mom and dad doesn't try to make them like them. They have to give them the freedom, a little wider boulevard.
So there's an old adage in the business world that says first generation creates it, second generation expands it, third generation squanders it.
Pretty true.
Have you seen that play out, or is that not reality?
It plays out almost too much. I would say the third generation right now, we're successful at about 12%.
And the reason I've been given, and it'd be interesting to get your play, is the first generation had to grind it out.
They grind. Yeah.
The second generation grew up watching the grind.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't do the grind, but they saw what it took, and they saw the sacrifice. The third generation grew up never seeing the grind and never having sacrifice. No. They just grew up with everything because the second generation was already rich. They were already wealthy.
Yep.
So I have everything in life.
Yeah. I often say to people, like, you meet with the parents or whatever, and they started the company or they bought it from grandpa and they really scaled it. And I said, your expectations are too high. The systems you need in place, you need good talent, you need good marketplace presence. That's what you all do amazing. But they're not going to do it the same way. And that makes most business owners, particularly if they're entrepreneurs and started their founders, scares them. But I think the grind, I'll say this in a humorous way, using baseball vernacular, because we have spring training now, and the Tigers look pretty good. So I'm very, very happy about that. But the second generation was born on second base. They saw the grind but didn't participate in it.
Right, but the third generation is on home plate.
They're actually going to the popcorn stand because they think they scored, and they didn't even run around the bases yet. So, and it's not their fault. I know there's some societal pressures. I want my kids to be better off than me. Well, then let them grind. But they don't. They give them the country club membership, and it's just hard. It's such a hard thing. And you think parenting is easy, and running a business is the same problem. It's just.
And most of us are guilty of this because we want to give our kids everything, and quite frankly, it's just easier.
That's why you're not allowed to wear tights, Mark. You can't do that Superman thing anymore.
See, he gets it.
So right now, Greg, we have the biggest transfer of wealth and assets about to take place or in the process of taking place right now that's ever happened in the history of the world, right?
Yep, the world. Yeah. So right now, if you take just America, not international business, but just America, small, mid-cap, privately owned is 50% of our GDP. That's a really big number. And the amount of boomers that own those GDP companies it's 70+%.
So we're talking what, 100, 200 trillion dollars in wealth?
Probably even more, Mark. Probably more. Yeah, it's almost unfundable. I just don't know if the marketplace can buy them all. And they're great stories. Um, it's almost like we have to reindustrialize the economy. But with that size and number, what Maximize enjoys doing is meeting and talking to as many people as possible about just pencil that first plan. Because if something goes wrong, let's say Mark, you and I and Justin are in business together. We have spouses, and I die first. Justin, you don't want my wife as a partner, so we just have to have it penciled. We don't even have to execute the succession, the exiting, the transfer of shares until everyone's ready, or there needs to be. Accordingly, with 4Ds, you don't choose. But after that, I think what's really important for the leader, the founder, the entrepreneur, is to have something that excites them to, not the same, but excites them. It embraces their passion. Could be a cause. It could be maybe consulting. Uh, Keep this thing going. It's a muscle. And Mark, you do a lot with longevity. I have seen too many of my business clients who sold and their health diminishes within that first 100 days. And I'm not going to get into sad stories, but it's startling to watch someone just almost evaporate. Like they don't get up in the morning, they don't go to coffee, they don't lift weights, they don't do happy hour with clients, they're not on the road flying to meet the next business opportunity. So we have to create that for that owner.
So, Greg, as you know, I recently sold one of my companies.
Yes.
It didn't have this impact on me because my main everyday company is still here.
Correct.
So I didn't miss a beat. I'm still at my desk. I'm still doing everything I always do. So it really was just a liquidity event for me. But you know the history of that company. And as there was three of us that were partners,
Yes.
and one of my partners passed away,
Yep.
as you know, and you knew him well. And we all had an agreement. So amongst the three of us, we all signed an agreement that if any one of us passed away, the remaining two would never have to deal with the other person's wife or kids.
Correct.
That they would become an owner in stock only and have no voting rights.
Yep.
I will tell you that created, as you are aware, that created problems and acrimony that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah. That's the hard part about planning. I think God gives us a plan, and He has a lot of options for us. We just don't know the options. It's the same thing I'd love to have for succession planning. What can you anticipate? Who will react poorly? Who will?
That's back to those wild card events that
Yes.
that all three of us got together and said, this is what we want. And none of us took into account how would the remaining people respond to our agreement.
Yeah. And it's like the rug gets pulled out. I'm not going to go too far into books that I've written, but like identity, that event for you, Mark, really wasn't identity. It was a business opportunity. You were all in. You were talented. You not only saved the company but soared the company. But it wasn't your identity. You're still involved with entities that are your identity.
Mm-hmm.
Justin's everybody else. That wasn't as hard for you and the remaining partner because it wasn't identity. And that's the real challenge when I advise business owners, founders, entrepreneurs. It is their identity. An entrepreneur gets up in the middle of the night and maybe doesn't go to bed and they drink Red Bull because they're really excited to launch this new product. It's just their livelihood. It's their electricity in their system. And you take that away, that's pretty tough. And that didn't happen for you, Mark. You did have a liquidity event, and it was an amazing story, but you really didn't lose part of yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wrestle with, particularly when someone's married, so let's use an example. Mary owns the company. Her husband, John, is not involved. Mary now sells it. It's part of their social story identity. But the husband really didn't lose much. But when his wife comes back home and is there 24/7 without a plan, without a next chapter, he's wondering, this is not going to work for her or me. And so that's that third plan, Mark and Justin. You need to have that chapter defined. You can't fish and golf every day. I'm just telling you, I've tried it.
So I want to throw something at you. This was an observation that was this was a casual conversation one evening with my great friend Dan Sullivan, my dear buddy Dan,
Good man.
a brilliant man with who sits in an unusual position because he deals with 2,500 of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world. So he has a vision
Yeah.
and a perspective of what we do grander than anybody else does because it's so big.
Right.
Dan's comment was that by his observation, he has not put a pencil to it. But by his observation, he says that more than half of his clients who sell their company and have a major liquidity event now end up in a divorce within 18 to 24 months.
It's not in my book, but that's true.
So you agree with that?
I do.
And I'm going to give you Dan's reason and see if you agree with him.
Okay.
His reason is Dad's been at the office for the past 25 years grinding it out. Mom's been raising the kids and doing everything that she does or helping out with the business. His thinking is the kids are grown and mom looks and says, we have $100 million in the bank. I'm going to take my half and go do something for me now.
Couldn't be more accurate.
Really? Okay. Expand on that.
Well,
and how do we stop that from happening?
Well, you have to have a plan. A plan meaning the next chapter. So one of the more sacred moments for me is when they've decided to sell. I'll use your example, Mark. The husband owns the company, the wife's involved, but she also had, she was the home engineer. I mean, she did a lot of things. Not trying to do gender things here, but it's not just she's not at home. She's supporting everything. She's at social events. She's traveled with the guy. I get it. When you pull that out, there's a huge gap. So you go to the ocean today, Mark, if you're in Florida, and you go to the sand and the waves hit and the tide's changing and you scoop 2 cups of sand. Wave comes back, the hole's filled. That's my job with the business owners. Because in your backyard, you take a spade, you pick up a bucket of dirt, there's still a hole. And that's the problem. They're not used to that. And so I think sacrifice, the grind in that story you gave me, the grind of the husband is different than the grind of the wife. And so now the grind isn't required for the wife. They sold the company. And now that leaves a vacuum of, I got to go fight for something. I'm looking for a little more fun. We sacrificed so long.
Right. I want some fulfillment for me. And the reality is, folks, some of the people listening here are new in startups. Some of the people here are wealthy. The reality is, as you build wealth, and so again, I don't want to be sounding like I'm complaining about rich people problems, but as you build wealth brings its own set of challenges and its own set of problems. It's not just all sit on the beach and clip coupons.
No, you're right.
And when you have a couple, when you have a husband, wife, oftentimes being the non-working spouse is as big a job and as busy of a job as the person who's running the company. Because you very well might be running 2 homes, you're working in charities, you're keeping up with his travel schedule, you are planning events that are going to be going on. There's a lot going on there too. That doesn't even add, are you raising kids at the same time? Because
Correct.
if you are, you're the one going to the bowling tournaments and going to the soccer games because he's in meetings.
Yeah, correct. I would say for Dan's example, the percent of divorce or schisms in a marriage once the exit event happens, I think there's 2 pieces. That man changed and came home. And so she's like, I need that guy out there just killing the wildebeest, hunting.
My wife says some of her female friends whose husbands have retired
Yep,
are now complaining that he's just in the way.
100%.
He's underfoot is their words.
Well, example, I'm not talking about your wife, Mark, but like if she said, "What are you doing today?" I don't know. What are you doing? That is not her old life,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not exciting, and so that's really what we need to correct in that third plan is a chapter that's enticing, to keep it together, to make it an adventure for them, that it doesn't have to end poorly. I'm going to add one other thing that happens when an entrepreneur, a business owner sells and they have a liquidity event. If they don't keep their foot on the pedal doing something, their health will go down. I'm going to laugh with you, Justin, because you said something about Rolodex and you saw one in an antique store. But I think for most people, the pace is what they're used to. And so I'm going to give you my history. Mark will know what this group is. So the Jetsons was an old TV cartoon.
Yeah, now it's old. Now it's outdated.
Now you're like, we're doing that stuff right now. It would look so silly. But in one scene in his, either it was the intro to the Jetsons or the end of the show, George is outside the capsule, which still makes me laugh, but he's on a treadmill. And the treadmill goes too fast. And he yells to his wife, "Jane, stop this crazy thing." And so when we stop it, what was the dog's name? Astro.
Yeah.
Astro, yes.
Astro's outside with George floating next to the capsule. Hey, this isn't going to work. Anyway, I think that treadmill we're kind of used to adrenaline. And then when they have the exit and they come home with money, it's more stress. And that's that real fine line. You don't want
Justin, does that sound crazy to you? Let me ask a question.
Yeah.
You're a young guy. You're not in this position. Does the idea of I've got $40 million in the bank and it's time for me to go home, does that sound like, hey, give me that problem, I want to do this? Or how does it grab you?
Here's what I'll tell you, is that I am more stressed during peacetime than I am at war.
Excellent.
So it won't matter how much money's in the bank. Peacetime is the problem for me. And I imagine it's exactly the same, is all of a sudden it's peacetime. So there's no battle to fight. So then why am I here? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to act? And
right. Nobody needs the hero once they've been rescued.
Right.
And certainly not with tights. Mark, I don't know if you two or Justin, there's a author, John Eldridge, Christian author. He wrote a book called Wild at Heart. Mm-hmm. And Justin, you just I highly recommend it. Justin, it's an easy read. That's because I read it. It's an easy read. Mark would want a bigger, harder book to, a lot of syllables. I just want 2 syllables and big print. But so this particular book, it was an aha for me early in my faith, where when God was creating, right, he took Adam. There was no Garden of Eden. He went to dirt, spit in it, created Adam. And then he had Adam, you're going to take care of the animals and you're going to grow things. And so, but he found Adam lonely, needed a helpmate, needed a partner, needed a soulmate. And so he created Eve. But he created Eve from the garden dirt, not the wild. And that's a significant difference for us men.
Wow, I never paid attention to that before, Greg.
There
is a message there. There is a message there.
There's a message. I got goosebumps repeating it because the church I go to, I actually did a John Eldridge program for men. Because, I'm not talking about being, a jerk, but masculinity isn't toxic. Mm-hmm. We need it. I'll say this, hopefully not going to affect FCC violations here, but I'm not going to call someone who's woke and weak to come battle with me because we have insurrection in our city. I'm going to go after alphas. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what the wild where Adam was made was from. I'm not talking about killing everything. I'm just saying you've got to get your hands dirty. And that's what entrepreneurs, men and women, have had to get their hands dirty, roll their sleeves up, work extra hours, miss things like you talk about bowling or soccer. But when that stops, getting back to Dan Sullivan's statistics, and really I find it to be a real cavity for the owners. That's where the plan has to be like, you've got to have something that lights your fire. It may not be 60 hours a week, but it needs to light your fire. You can't get up in the morning and say, yeah, maybe about 10:30 I'll do something. No. So I recommend keeping the same schedule. Go to the same gym. Go for breakfast with people. Keep that schedule, because sitting at home will drive the person at home crazy. Like a man under the feet of the wife. It's come on.
So clients can call you and you can help them put their 100-day plan together. You can help them do the succession plan. Do you get involved in looking at their relationships and helping them navigate what are those going to look like in the future?
I do.
Where you might be able to counsel somebody and say, hey, you need to get back doing date night with your wife right now,
Yes.
or whatever the case is.
So let's say you guys sent a name. Mary Smith owns this huge company. It's amazing. She started it from scratch, and she doesn't know what to do with it. That's perfect, because I don't have the 4 Ds. Everything's not chaos, and we can plan out a little bit. She's like, well, I don't know if I want to leave here for another 5 years. Awesome. That's when you find out, okay, who's your spouse, or who are your kids, or do you have a dog? Do you have a cause you love? What would you like to do if you had more time on your plate? Those kind of things. And then what I've learned is EBITDA, so your company is worth X. I'm not trying to be a smart aleck here, but I've had a bunch of people come in. So my company is worth about 15 million. Okay.
Because they're just looking at EBITDA and multiplying it by 7 or whatever the case is.
Yeah. You got the earnings, and you just, so, it's 3 times X, whatever. So it's worth 15. Does that change you? And often they'll say, not really. So you weren't working 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week, missing your daughter's soccer game to finally get 15 million. You don't have your daughter anymore, but you got 15 million. And so that the chase is really almost a little bit of a false. Mm-hmm. So what I really spend a lot of time on is the emotion side. Will that owner be sad when they have to hand the keys over? Will they be anxious when they find out they're not running it the way I used to? They hear from the banker, kind of a little gossip, and I have to prepare them as best I can. So they and their spouse or family, I sit down and figure out, so if dad or mom exited and transferred the shares and no longer has to be the problem solver, what are some of your fears? So they'll tell you a ton of really helpful things. And that's where you come up with a plan for them to say, all right, so they don't want you coming by the house asking if you need help. They want to see that leader that they loved. Mom or dad, just I want that leader. Don't sell and not be a leader. And and obviously there's cash. Mark, you had a liquidity event that happens. Justin, I hope you do make 40 million. That'd be awesome. But I think the challenge for a lot of owners is, I built this. I don't know how to give it away, because they're built to fight. That's what you talked about, Justin, is the chaos, the war. And we're kind of wired that way, like, oh, no, he's not going to win that account. I'm going to take that from that guy. And then you take that all away and you're like, so our soap opera's on at 1? What are we going to do today? And it's just unfulfilling. And that leads to... Sorry.
A mutual friend of you and me, not too long back, had a 10-digit offer thrown at him for his company.
Whew.
And you know who it is?
Yep.
And he called me up and he says, I have this 10-digit offer. And I'm not sure what to do. And I asked him a question. I'm like, do you need cash? He's like, no, I already have massive amounts of cash now.
Exactly.
I said, okay. So I asked him a question. what would you do tomorrow if the sale closes tonight? And his answer was, I would just open up another company and do exactly what I'm doing now.
I hear that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I would just go back doing exactly what I'm doing. I said, except you would go back and start doing it without your 165 support staff.
Yeah.
He's like, well, yeah, I guess that's true. I wouldn't have my team anymore. He goes, but I love my life. Why would I change this?
Yeah.
And then as we're talking, he just goes, yeah, I'm not going to sell. This makes no sense.
Right. Yeah.
So imagine calling somebody and saying, yeah, I'm not interested in your 10-digit offer for me.
You're like, did you have too much tequila last night? Is that bean dip bothering your tummy? What's going on? I think when the rubber hits the road and they think, there's that book, Man in the Mirror. It has a different purpose, but a person in the mirror, the owner in the mirror, the entrepreneur in that mirror, am I okay not sprinting on the Jetson treadmill? I don't know if that's foreign to me. And that's really what succession planning and advising. I love quarterbacking. I played quarterback. I use the phrase a lot. You pull together a huddle. So I'll just say, so let's say, Justin, you're a CPA, very good at tax issues. Mark, you're a very good lawyer, and you'll help us with term sheets and earnouts. So I assemble a team of people. They don't have to work for me. So let's use your example of the 10-figure. He says, hey, Mark, you're my attorney. So I would work with you. I wouldn't go find another attorney. You know the story better than I'll ever know the story. But you have to assemble a huddle. So I got PR firms because sometimes, they think something's wrong. You get some very good wealth management advice. So that's another whole story. For sure, accounting, tax, and legal, like this has got to be tight. I can't have a loose offer sheet. But to pull that huddle together is a gas. But my real role is basically business owner psychologist. And now I've had companies that had more than one owner. And that's even more tricky because I'll use us three. Let's say we're three owners and I'm helping the three of us figure out how to exit well. Mark, you're going to have different goals. Justin, you're like, I got a long runway yet. And so every deal, every relationship, every opportunity is so unique. I got to pray and plan that I want to give them the best advice, ask great questions, and be available when the wheels fall off. And they do. I have a lunch after this podcast, and the wheels are kind of falling off. One of my clients' key persons is not happy because he's not fully empowered. So the owner is kind of holding back a little bit. So the title is the one thing.
And one of the things I'm hearing, Justin, I don't know about you, what I'm hearing is selling your company or passing your company down isn't a balance sheet transaction. It's an emotional transaction.
It is.
100%. I mean, that's what I've been hearing this whole time. I mean, we've been talking for almost 50 minutes now, and less than 5% of it had anything to do with numbers.
Correct. Yeah.
This is so much, as you talked about, is so much about, don't close this chapter until you get an idea what you're writing in the next one. And if you don't have that in every capacity, and I was curious too, as you were talking, Greg, just thinking about the personality type of the individuals that we're talking about. How difficult are these conversations at times? How long does this process take? I mean, I assume, again, just assuming that you don't start these conversations and it's just an open book all the time.
No.
Like, these are truths that must be discovered, which also, to me, lends to what you talked about earlier, which is start this sooner rather than later, because you have to go on a journey of self-discovery to really do this well.
And to be whole. There's a big piece that's taken away when you sell your shares or ownership. And whether it's an entrepreneur, a family business, second generation, third, whatever, there's a lot of pressure. And the Business Baton book goes through, I don't want to call it mistakes, but myths for the owner. The first one is they're not prepared. but also could be the business not prepared. So that owner dependence has been one I really have been wrestling with. I've got 2 clients where it is so dependent on them. I am not sure I can find a successor leader to replace that person. It is so dependent.
And is it the companies can't function without them, or is it they don't want their company to function without them?
More the B than the A in that case. And so they've set it up. It's almost like a funnel, and it's stuck with that owner. But owner dependency is a huge one because it feeds ego, makes them feel good. The phone rings. They're invited to campaigns and causes and dinners and galas, and it stops quite often. When they hand the keys over to the next generation, and that's very hard. There's kids is one thing. We haven't talked much about that. I'm not trying to bore the audience. You guys are amazing. But birthright, I get that a lot. Well, my son's the oldest. Okay. Is he the best for the next?
Right.
I don't know.
Is he the capable one, or is he just the oldest one?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And, you can go back in the Bible where, they were looking for someone to take after Saul. And they went through a bunch of brothers, and they finally ended up with a shepherd boy, David. It was the second to the last one they would have picked. Benjamin was the youngest. It's like, it's not birthright. It's, who can handle that baton and do it with humility, keep their hunger, and be honest. And sometimes the birthright isn't always that. And I've had to deliver that news. And particularly, I'll give you a little gender thing. If it's a male, a boy, he's the oldest. Who gives me the most flack is the mom. That's my boy. He's carrying on the name. I thought it would be a dad, but sometimes that's more of a rub. And the moms have given me such slack and flack when I just pose it. So if the birthright is what you're saying, should we make sure? Oh, are you questioning me? No, I'm actually making sure because you have 165 employees. This company has been around 39 years. I'd like it around for another 139. But they do take it personal.
You just reminded me of something when you brought up the reference to David. And this is how my mind finds all these dissimilar things and somehow bolts them together. And Justin was talking about how he's calmer in war than he is in peace. And then you brought up David, and it occurred to me, Bathsheba happened during a time when David wasn't busy and was at peace.
Yep. That's exactly right, Mark. So, Justin, thanks for teeing it up for us. Now, Mark, you sound brilliant. That's amazing.
That's what I'm here for.
Oh,
That's what I'm here for.
You're awesome.
But it's a great example how when we don't have the battle, we go looking to make one.
Or hurt ourselves, yeah.
And sometimes we make a bad one.
Often, and then you really have to battle. I think, Justin, your comment 5 minutes ago, it's so much feelings versus financial. Another word would be EBITDA versus emotion. And I think for most business owners, they can measure number. It's kind of soft tissue. It's hard to measure feelings, or emotions, but it's nerve wracking because they've held the banner, they've had the scepter, they've led the charge. And when they don't have the charge, they don't have anybody with them. I'll start another company, but you're 60. You don't have the energy you used to have when you were 30. And that's one of those coaching things it's Danny. You got to be careful. But Mark, I would agree with you. I've got 2 clients successfully exiting what they built, and they started another company unrelated to what they did that they always wanted to do, but didn't have the margin. So that would be a chapter that is healthy.
So a couple of Dan Sullivan things I'll throw at you, using Dan a lot today. One of them is that transition from what made you profitable to what makes your life significant.
Good.
But the second thing that Dan has done a lot of work on is what he calls your second company. And Dan always says your first company builds your wealth and makes you cash confident. your second company is built to fulfill your passions.
Correct. So you asked me, Mark, early on. I had a company. Well, I've had two companies I've sold. Um, I did it twice. So my first firm I sold to the firm I just retired from, quote unquote. But I always wanted to do maximize, but I didn't have the capacity. We had 160 employees. We were in 41 states. And we were really busy, traveling a lot. And then you have to get home, make sure home life is good and you've got balance. And that's a dickens of a scale for a lot of entrepreneurs because they're so energy, right? How did you not sleep all night? I was so compelled. And then you take that enterprise away, and what compels them is the problem. That's why the David and Bathsheba, they weren't compelled. So Dan's using second significance. I would say purpose, because when someone starts a company, they're trying to make money. They want to build a house, start a family, blah, blah, blah. And then they get excited about, oh, this is fun. But then you get into that Jetsons treadmill, and I've had a lot of interviews. So if you did this 10 years ago, what would you do? Oh, I would totally do something different. So timing is key. I have an entrepreneur who started a cleaning company, and he sold it to a big company and still works. So there's a little purpose. The next chapter wasn't like, now what do I do? And he was 42. So it wasn't like he was looking to exit and play golf in Florida. He still had fire. And that's the one thing I have to find when we meet business owners is I need to tap that fire. Don't turn that grill off. Let's still keep cooking. And that sounds cheesy, but it's really a great thing for the owner or owners to deal with.
Greg, we know you got to run. Tell our audience very quick about the book and what they're going to get from the book and how this might start their path to planning.
I think, for a lot of business owners, they've got advisors everywhere, bankers, legal, HR, etc. This particular one is kind of not wishing to talk about because it feels like you have to quit. And so I love an organization when I meet a leader or leaders where they're like, if I left tomorrow and sailed around the world, my company wouldn't miss a beat. Wow. But that is, Dan probably has got stats. It's probably 1 or 2%. The rest are all, I love this. I can't see myself doing anything different. They can get a hold of me at www.maximizeleadership.com. Toll-free number, 888-308-1600. I don't charge anything for the first call or two because I don't know if I can help, but I do want to pose those questions. That particular book has a bunch of owners' dilemmas, is maybe what I would call it. They think their company is worth X and they're offended when someone says it's not quite worth X. It could be a situation where they're very afraid to talk about, I'm going to be leaving eventually, Is there a movie, Dr. Megorium's Euphorium or whatever it is? It's that fancy, Dustin Hoffman was the guy. And in the end, Natalie Portman's going to take over that store. It's a pretty cool story. And he says, today you're taking over. I wish that we had that time where we could develop the next leaders so it wouldn't be so scary. But some founders, some entrepreneurs still love the fight. And so there's not a lot of room to develop other leaders yet. But just different chapters kind of click. One is Bad News Bears, and that's probably the last plug I'll give is I need to assemble a team. Walter Matthau's movie, Bad News Bears, which was hilarious. You don't want Bad News Bears on your advisory team when you're a business owner having to look at succession planning and eventual exiting. And so you need good people, a good attorney, good tax person, good communications PR firm, good wealth manager, and so on. And sometimes the business owners have those great people and they can help us move the ball across the end zone line. But sometimes they don't. And you outgrow some people. So I really like the plan you spoke of, 40 minutes ago, Mark, that first 100 days when they leave, those plans of, okay, do we have a little window? Can I get your bullpen, strong enough to take over? And then of course, family, particularly marriage. Post the sale, you got to have something to do together, but you can't be all over each other because one of you will say, sayonara, I'm going to take a long walk. So we want to preserve everything. I'll give you one fun story. I interviewed a family. You spoke about, do I meet everybody? So spouses, kids, and then key people. I interviewed 12 key people and family. And I interviewed the spouse who was involved in the company, but not 100%. She knew a lot. And I said, so what is my goal for you in this? She goes, Greg, I need a little coffee money, and I want good Easters and Christmases. And I said, I can do that. And so the roles of the engagement are really fun when you have different experiences with business owners and businesses, but everyone's not the same. My one client that I still have, he's not going to quit. He will die in his chair. But I'm helping him empower others because they need to know they can do it without him.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Well, Greg, thanks for being with us. This is obviously your passion project. This is what's become your passion project, obviously. So, folks, go to the show notes. We'll have links to the book. We'll have links to Greg's website in there. And I'm going to recommend, if you're in business, you got to make some plans. This is probably a good place to start. And as Greg said, if you ever want to reach out to him, you can reach out to him. And it's the same way that Justin and I do that. Justin, we always invite people. They can always reach out and talk to us if they want to talk to us. Yeah. Same way. So, folks, we hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, go to wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. And if you're not subscribed, hit the little subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. And we have another great guest coming up this month that I'm really looking forward to. And more, in fact, a couple of guests coming up. And more stuff on the book coming up, I believe, too. Right, Justin?
Oh, yeah. And by the time this is released, it might actually be out already. So it's going to be exciting.
All right. That's it for today, folks. We'll see you on the next episode of CPG Insiders. If you're looking to greatly increase sales on your CPG product, don't hesitate to contact us at Jekyll & Hyde Advertising and Marketing. By the way, the only advertising agency with a guaranteed result. Just go to jekyllhydeagency.com or feel free to give us a call at 800-500-4210.